What if business asks you to carry the user context to the target system? What if integration user being a generic user adds no visibility from source to target org and they are not understanding why and who created the records? Welcome to Salesforce with Vinayaka. Today we are talking about JWT bearer flow, also known as JWT. This is the fifth part of our external client app series. Let's do a quick peek what exactly are we going to talk about, and if you're interested in any specific steps, then use the timestamp below to head directly to that particular part, and you can understand what exactly the steps has to be taken care for that particular topic. Now, since we will be talking about two different orgs here, I have color coded that particular orgs accordingly so that we know what steps are taken in which org. Since we are talking about JWT, there will be two keys in picture. One is private and the other one is the public. There are two ways of creating this particular keys. One is either you can do offline and then bring that particular keys into Salesforce ecosystem, or else you can do just by using self-signed certificate, where the private and the public key will be created by Salesforce, and you would be able to only access the public key by downloading the certificate, but the private key would be hidden from all the users, even the admin. Now let's straight head to the Salesforce org, and you can see here also I have color coded here for source and target org. We know that which particular org and what is the configuration that we are doing, so it is easy for you to follow along. First step is about creating the self-signed certificate. So I would straightly hit to certificate and key management in my source org, and I will be creating the self-signed certificate for 2048, and you can simply download the certificate and keep it ready for our next step. The next step is about external client app creation, and this will be a JWT enabled where we will be importing the certificate that we just downloaded into this particular JWT enabled external client app, which would be used further by Salesforce to do the authorization. Let's go to the external client app of target system. This is the external client app that I'm going to use, and let's see what all the configurations that we have done. If I see the OAuth policy, I'm talking about admin approved users are pre-authorized, and that's why the profile whatever I have selected would be pre-authorized and it would have access to the external client app. Now coming to the settings by itself, I have enabled this particular OAuth setting, and then I have given enable JWT bearer flow, and this is the exact certificate that I have just downloaded from my source org, which I have imported in my target system. So this is the source org where I have downloaded, and this is my target system where I have uploaded this particular certificate into, where I have enabled the JWT bearer flow. Now I have given few OAuth scope as per the need. I have enabled the security for web server flow and also the refresh token. Now here in this particular demo, I am not going to use web server flow, and that's why you can see my callback URL is very generic. If you are needing to have web server flow used in actual instance, then you need to give a callback URL which is valid, where you would like to redirect the user after the authorization. The next step that I need to do is I need to capture this particular key and secret so that I can use it in my next step. I have created my external client app here. I have uploaded my certificate of where the JWT is enabled. Now coming to the source org, I have to create external credential. I'm coming to this particular external credential here. This is the name credential, and I'm going to go to the external credential. So now if I click edit, this is the important configuration that I need to do in my whole setup of this demo, because this is where the most of the configurations happen. Authorization will happen using this configuration. I'm using OAuth 2.0, which is obvious, and then I'm using the JWT bearer flow here as my authentication type. And now as the identity provider, I'm using my domain name, and this is the standard OAuth token URL that I will be using. So in the common claims, I'm using the issuer. This is nothing but the client ID of the external client app from the external or the target system that I have just copied over. So now I would be using my user context based on the dynamicity that I have at the user level. I have created one email field in user where it will be carrying my user context of the target org. This is the target org username that I will be using. So based on the user that is there in the source org, based on the user's value that is there in the target username, the same context would be carried forwarded to the target instance where the record update or the creation will happen based on that particular username. Now, this is the audience where it can be either login.salesforce.com or test.salesforce.com. It can be only either of them. It is not a domain URL. It is either login.salesforce or test.salesforce. And since my instance is domain is developer instance, I have used login.salesforce. But if you're using sandbox, then you may have to use test.salesforce.com based on your org that the target org is about. Now, the JWT signing is having the certificate which I have just created that in my first step. This is the same certificate that I'm going to tag that in my external credential. And this is the signing algorithm which is a standard RS-256. I'm going to leave as it is to that. As we have given the access to external client app based on the profile that we just spoke about, similarly, I need to give this particular external credential as an access to the user, and that can be done by using the principles. So I'm going to create one principle here where this is a user principle, and this particular user principle I need to either tag it to my profile or permission set. So let's say this is a user that I have and the profile is system admin. I'm going to the system admin profile and I'm going to enable the principal access by adding that in this particular external client external credential principal access. So this way I can tell that this user has access to this external credentials, or else it would not be knowing this external credential and it would not be visible when I'm doing the authorization via Apex. These are all the Salesforce generated one, so I'm not going to talk about, but you can see here I have created a custom header, and this would be needing only if you are using the target system as non-Salesforce, because sometimes the Salesforce would be able to read this. Though the target system is Salesforce, then this particular parameter would be read by Salesforce, but sometimes it may not be. So you may have to pass the parameter and use the user context here so that it knows which user is trying to authorize. Coming to the named credential, where I have my domain URL of the target org, and then I would be adding that particular external client, or I will be just tagging that external credential that I have created. Since I'm using the custom header, I have enabled this particular checkbox, which will be used in the authorization if I am using non-Salesforce instance. So now my external credential is done, and I also talked about named credential. Now let's straight head to demo. So in order to go to demo, I need to show you a couple of things so that you can follow along. I have two users in my source org and two users in my target instance. So let's say this is a user, then the user that I am tagging with this particular user is Vinayaka, which is my target system username. So let me head to the other user here, which is org farm, which is a source org, and the target user for this particular source org is second admin. So that means if I am creating any record from org farm URL, I mean org farm username, the particular instance that I will be user context that I will be carrying is second admin. So you can see this is the login that I have, and here you can see this is a user login that I have done. That means if Vinayaka is actually trying to create the records, then the context that will be carried is the username is this, whichever the username that will be there here, that is the username that will be carried forwarded. What I have one small LWC that I have, where it will be querying all the accounts from the target system, and it will just show it here where I can create the account as well. And the same LWC or the same one or the same page I have opened up here also, where the user credential or the user login that I have done is based on the org form. Okay, so now what I would like to show here is, let me go to this target org external client tab. You can see the user count right now is 0. That means there is no user that is actually tagged to this particular external client tab, which we will see now how exactly this will increase the count. So now let me go to this particular user and then I try to create an account. So let me try to create an account as second admin demo, and then I'm going to select some values so that it can create, and then I click on create account. When I click on create account, the backend Apex is actually making a call out using my external credential and the name credential, and it is hitting the target instance with the user context that has been given in this particular external target username. So now if I just do a refresh, you can see the user count has been increased to 1. So now if I go and see the view usage, you can see this is the exact username that I have used in my username field, right? So that means it carried this particular user context and it made a connection to the target system using the context of the field value that I have given in this particular source org. So now if I go to the list view and let me refresh this, you can see here this particular owner that is created is by second admin. That means it carried the user context that I have given in that custom field, and the account got created based on that particular context. Let me go to the another user where I have logged in as Vinayaka, where this particular username carries this context. So now let me just go ahead and create another account. Let me say first account demo, and the type is just selecting some values, and then I click on create. So now it will carry this particular user context and then it will create a record accordingly. So now if I go back here, and you can see the first account demo has been created, but the user context is carried by Vinayaka. And you can see this particular details, whatever that we have given, is being also flown through. And if I go to my OAuth usage and then I refresh, now the second user is also being tagged for my external client tab that was there. So that means even this user got tagged along with my external client tab. So all this is good. Now what I want to show is the code that I have, so that you can get better understanding how exactly the authorization is happening in the backend. I have done this repo where I'm capturing all my details of the external client app here. You can see whatever the changes that are there in the source org and the target org. So target org, we have not done any configuration. I mean, we have not done any customization. It was only just a configuration that I have done for external client app. So that's why I'm just directly heading to the apex of my source, where what I'm going to show is how exactly we are building the request. So you can see I'm building the endpoint based on the named credentials. So if I go to this named credential, I'm just creating a variable where I will be doing the callout of JWT bearer named credential. This is the same named credential that I'm using here. So the same named credential I have copied here, and then I have used the syntax where this named credential is further used in my callout. And this is a query endpoint that I have. This is a standard Salesforce out of the box endpoint that I'm using to query. So this is used to fetch the records. So now if I see, I can see even the second admin and the first admin is already here. So right. So whatever the details that we have, it has been already fetched through. But let me go here right? I don't see any value here. I can just do a refresh, and you can see the first and the second admin demo is coming also here. So this particular query is done via this particular endpoint that we have. So now we have done with the endpoint and the named credential, and here is just a generic get request that I am doing to fetch all the records to the source org from the target system. So how the name credentials is being taken care in the backend, all the OAuth, everything, right, as we know, and then it is actually just doing the query and getting the responses back, where I'm using that particular wrapper in LWC to display. As soon as I click on create button of account and the details that are there, all the details will be coming here on click on create on save. Then I'm again using the name credentials and the SObject endpoint is there. This is again the standard Salesforce endpoint where I have used, and the same endpoint would be used to further push it, but the credentials or the OAuth will be done using the same named credentials that we have based on the user context that is done by the dynamicity of field that is present in the user. So this is all I wanted to show, and I hope you like the demo, and stay tuned for the next part where we are going to talk about the another flow of OAuth that is nothing but the enabled token exchange flow. Hope you liked the video. Thank you for staying tuned till the end. And if you would like to check out any other flow enablement like client credentials or authorization code, head back to my playlist of external client app and you can watch them all along. Thank you so much for your time.